Something is happening behind the scenes at Manchester United. 5 names, 5 potential deals, and one massive question. What is Manchester United's next move? With a surprise striker return, a major midfield target, and 2 left-backs in the mix, United's transfer plans are getting seriously interesting. This is Red Break. Let's get into it. Here's why this actually matters right now, today, not in some vague summer plans sense that gets recycled every June. United have already spent big. Cunha, Mbuemo, Shesko, that's the front line more or less sorted, at least on paper. But the engine room, still broken. Still the same hole that's been open since Casemiro walked out the door. And the left side of defence, still a problem. Luke Shaw physically cannot fix by himself anymore, not at this stage of his career. So when 5 separate names surface inside the same 48-hour window, that's not noise. That's not lazy paper talk from a slow news day. That's a club under real pressure to get its business right before pre-season momentum curdles into September panic. The kind of panic that's defined United's last 4 transfer windows in a row. Let's go one by one. And trust me, the order matters here, because the last one on this list might be the updates that actually changes everything. Miles Lewis-Skelly, 19 years old, Arsenal Academy graduate, Hale End product, the kind of homegrown talent Arsenal fans have been told to protect at all costs. And here's the part that should genuinely worry the Emirates faithful. United aren't just admiring him from a distance, they're investigating whether a deal is even possible. Sit with that word choice for a second. Not monitoring, not keeping tabs, which is the lazy phrase every outlet uses when they've got nothing concrete. Investigating. That's a club doing actual due diligence on a specific target. That's lawyers and analysts, not just scouts in the stands with a notepad. So why him specifically? Lewis-Skelly can play left back. He can also play as a pressing midfielder in a back 3 or a double pivot, which instantly makes him more valuable to a manager like Carrick, who likes positional flexibility. He started 6 times in the Champions League this season, but only once in the Premier League, buried behind Piero Hincapié and Riccardo Calafiori in Arteta's pecking order, despite being widely rated as one of the best academy graduates Arsenal have produced in a decade. That's the opening United think they can exploit. A talented kid stuck on the bench at a club with genuine title ambitions, watching 2 summer signings leapfrog him in the queue. But, and this is a significant but, Arsenal are not desperate sellers here. Lewis-Skelly signed a new 5-year contract barely 12 months ago. This isn't a player publicly agitating for an exit, posting cryptic Instagram stories, refusing to train. This is United hoping frustration builds naturally over the course of a season where he keeps getting overlooked. That's a gamble on patience, not a guaranteed outcome. And gambling on patience when you're United in this window with expectations this high, that's a risky game to be playing. Now here's where it gets genuinely messy, because Lewis-Skelly isn't even United's only left-back move in motion right now, not even close. Lewis Hall, Newcastle, 21 years old, and according to reports, United are planning to make their move imminently. Valued around £60 million, some earlier reports floated numbers as high as 70, but the figure that's actually holding up under scrutiny right now sits closer to 60. £60 million for a left-back who can also comfortably slot into midfield when needed. And sources close to the player have reportedly suggested Hall sees working under Carrick as, quote, hugely attractive. That's not a rumour mill guess dressed up as fact. That's a player-side signal, the kind that usually means talks are further along than the headlines let on. So ask yourself the obvious question. Why chase two left-backs from two different clubs at the exact same time? Here's the theory that actually holds up under pressure. United aren't necessarily trying to land both. They're running parallel tracks, so they're never left completely exposed if one of them collapses at the negotiating table. If Arsenal slam the door shut on Lewis-Skelly, and given that new contract they absolutely could, Hall becomes plan A by default. If Newcastle price gouge on Hall the way they've done with previous sales, Lewis-Skelly suddenly becomes the priority again. That's smart business if you're being generous about it, or it's a sign United genuinely don't know which profile they actually want and they're letting the market decide for them instead of making a decision internally. Fans are properly split on this one. Some see it as calculated risk management. Others see it as the same directionless chaos that's defined recruitment at Old Trafford for the better part of a decade. Honestly, I can see both arguments, and that tension alone tells you something about where this club is right now. But then the midfield, because United's real structural issue was never actually the left side of defence. It's the number 6 role, the deep-lying anchor position that's been a gaping hole since Casemiro's exit and Manuel Ugarte's long-term injury left Carrick with almost nothing reliable in front of the back four. Enter Aurélien Tchouameni. United have made an inquiry over the Real Madrid midfielder. Not a bid, not an official approach with numbers attached, an inquiry. But here's what makes this one genuinely different from the usual recycled paper talk. The timing lines up with something much bigger happening over in Madrid. Reports suggest Real's manager is open to letting Tchouameni go if it helps finance a completely separate move for Manchester City's Rodri. Read that again, because it matters. United's target might only become available because Real Madrid wants somebody else entirely, and Tchouameni is essentially collateral in a deal that has nothing to do with Old Trafford. That's not United controlling this negotiation from a position of strength. That's United sitting and waiting on a domino they don't own, hoping it falls in their favour. Tchouameni fits the exact profile Carrick needs on paper. Experienced at the highest level, defensively disciplined, physically imposing, still only in his mid-20s with plenty of resale value left in him. He solves the precise problem Casemiro's exit created 2 years ago and United still haven't properly fixed. But here's the historical parallel worth thinking about. This isn't the first time United have circled a marquee defensive midfielder only to watch the deal die because they were never the club actually driving the negotiation. Think back to some of the Declan Rice speculation years ago or the Ander Herrera successor conversations that went nowhere. United have a track record of being interested parties in other clubs' business rather than the club setting the terms. And it doesn't stop with Tchouameni. United are also still circling Alex Scott, Manu Kone, Ayoub Bouadi. That's not a shortlist anymore. That's a full-blown shopping spree with no clear order of priority attached to it. And when a club is genuinely linked with 5 different midfielders inside the same window, that usually doesn't mean they're being thorough. It usually means they haven't actually decided who they want. It means they're covering every possible outcome because nobody in the building has committed to a first-choice target. What happened next shocked a lot of fans who genuinely thought this particular story was dead and buried. And now, the one that's actually moving the fastest of all 5, Francisco Conceicao. United aren't just interested here, they're reportedly leading the entire race. Juventus winger, 23 years old, Portugal international, someone who's already shown flashes of genuine quality against elite European opposition. And the proposed structure behind this deal is honestly wild. United offering around 30 million euros plus Joshua Zirkzee going the other way as part of the overall package. A player plus cash swap deal. Zirkzee, who arrived at Old Trafford with enormous hype attached and never quite nailed down a consistent role under successive managers, potentially heading back to Italy as United's make weight to land a winger they clearly see as the missing piece out wide. Here's the escalation angle fans genuinely aren't talking about enough yet. If Conceição arrives, that puts both Bryan Mbeumo and Amad Diallo on notice. 2 players United built serious portions of their attacking identity around this summer. Mbeumo, a marquee signing in his own right, and Amad, someone who shone brightly for Ivory Coast on the biggest stage available to him. You don't go and sign a direct positional competitor for two in-form wide players unless you're either planning serious rotation across a longer season with European football involved, or unless one of those two is quietly, privately available if the right offer comes calling. And Liverpool are reportedly circling this exact same deal, which changes the whole complexion of the negotiation. So if United hesitate even a single week here, this one is realistically gone, snapped up by a direct rival. That's precisely why agents close to Conceição have reportedly already confirmed United's direct approach. That's not paper talk anymore. That's not vague fourth-hand speculation. That's a real, live, moving race with a genuine deadline pressure attached to it. So here's where that actually leaves United when you step back and look at the full picture all at once. Two left-backs being chased simultaneously. A defensive midfielder whose availability is tied entirely to Real Madrid's own separate transfer plans, not United's leverage. And a winger deal moving fast enough that it could cost United one of this summer's own marquee signings just to make it happen at all. That's not a normal, orderly transfer window. That's a club trying to finish 5 different jigsaw puzzles at once, using pieces that don't always fit the same picture on a budget that's already stretched thinner than most fans realise. Here's the big picture truth sitting underneath all of this. United's spending on Cunha, Mbeumo and Šeško bought them genuine attacking firepower going into this season. But it also may have quietly boxed them in financially. Every move from here on out has to be funded through sales, swaps or serious creative accounting rather than straightforward cash spending. The Conceição for Zirkzee structure isn't just an interesting transfer story on its own, it's a signal for how United actually have to operate now in this financial reality. Trade to build rather than simply buy to build, the way this club used to operate a decade ago when money was never the issue. So which of these 5 actually happens first? My honest read is Conceição, purely because that deal has the most momentum and the clearest urgency attached to it right now, with a direct rival already circling. But Lewis Hall's imminent bid reports are running right behind it, close enough that either could break first, depending on which club blinks. But what do you think? Would you honestly rather United land Lewis-Skelly or Lewis Hall, given everything we just broke down? Drop it in the comments and let's actually argue about it properly.